Okay, we are on 14a. We're in the middle of the Gemara. We're going to finish up today, Bez Hashem. We're talking about the handles for food, the handles for utensils, and we said there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yossi and the Tanakama by the yodos of food, the handles of food, when you were butzasan, which butzasan we said there's a question, what does butzasan mean? But when you did that act of butzasan, now one opinion says that removes the status from a handle, and one opinion says that butzasan does not remove from the status of a handle. And what does butzasan mean? So one opinion means butzasan means you untied the bundle to show you're not interested that it should be connected anymore. And the other opinion is you actually stepped on, the animal stepped on and crushed the handle, so to speak, the stalk by stepping on it. And there's two opinions whether that's what the halacha would be in that case. Would that be sufficient to lose the status of the handle or not? And the Gemara said we're on in the art scroll. It's 14a, 14a2. The Gemara wanted to say, because we morning Adam, we brought a machlokes, there was an earlier argument by the handles of the grapes, the handles of the figs, whether we consider when you wanted to use a Succah, whether it was considered as still a handle or not. The Brisa says first we had Rabbi Menashe. Rabbi Menashe says that if you cut the grain for the purpose of schach, it does not have a status of handle because you don't want it to be connected because the food part is not kosher for schach. The Gemara challenged him because we find that even when you're using a for schach, there's an opinion that says it has a status of a handle. So the Gemara said that case was talking about when you originally cut it for the purpose of food, and then you changed your mind, and then you wanted to use it for the purpose of schach. Good morning, Jaime.
Good morning.
We're becoming here experts in purity and impurity. So hopefully when the Beis HaMikdash will be built very soon, we'll have all the answers to all the questions when there's certain issues in Tumah Torah. So we're going to be finishing today. We will finish today this Succah. We're going to get moving into another new story. We're going to get into the schach, the boards regarding schach. We are on Yud Daled Amud Beis, or the Gemara said, El Hacha L'may Chazia. We are up to what is Yud Daled Amud Beis in the art scroll. It's on the right side. Hacha L'may Chazia. The Gemara wants to know in this brisa, when we're dealing with the stem, the shell that surrounds the kernel, that surrounds the food, what would it be? The Gemara wants to know. Let's look. We'll look at the top of the page. Haimai. You have it on the top of the page, 14a2. Right? Haimai. Bishlam lahatam taimid Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says that the item is tamei, that it did not lose the status of the handle, even though you crushed it. Even though it was crushed, it's still the status of the handle. But the question is, what's the purpose if it was crushed? Why should it still be status of a handle? It's no longer useful because it was crushed. So the Gemara says, Chazil Reish Lakish. It has use for a handle like Rav Shimon Lakish. The Amar of Shimon Lakish says that once it's still attached to the stem, to the stalk, it's easy to transport this food, this ear of grain. Now you could stick the pitchfork you could stick the pitchfork into the grain because it has its stem. So now the pitchfork, let's say the three-pronged fork, will go right in, it'll be able to hold on to it. And therefore retains the status of a handle. Elahacha, but in the Braita, when you go ahead and you take the grapes and it's connected with its stem, or the other figs, or the other things connected to its stem, what is the purpose over there? What by still being connected after you're crushing it? What are you gonna use it for? Once the stalk was stepped on, it's not going to be able. You're not tying it anymore together. So they're not. What's purpose are they serving by being connected? So the Gemara says, that when you go ahead, after you take apart the sukkah, when you take apart the sukkah after sukkah, the fact that it's still attached to its stalk, to its stem, you could go ahead and hold the grain through the stalk that it's still attached to. And therefore, it's still serving a purpose. And it's still, since the stalk is still benefiting the food, the kernels that are inside the stalk, it has a status of a handle. So that's what the Gemara says. It retains the status of a handle. So the Gemara says, Gufa. We learned in the Mishnah, Kol Yodot HaOchlin Shebatzasan Begoren. We learned in the Mishnah that was brought earlier. If any handle of a food that was Batzasan Begoren, that was either you crushed it you crushed the stalk in the granary, which shows you that you don't want the stalk anymore to be connected to the grain, and therefore it loses the status. Even though it's still connected, it's no longer considered connected in the sense that this is a handle, because we said if it's a handle, then it has the status of the food. The food is makabel, the grain part of the stalk is susceptible to tumah. So the stalk part is all susceptible to tumah. But that's one shot. The other shot is once you untie the bundle, that shows you that you're not interested in having it connected. You don't need it connected anymore. Rabbi Yossi says that it is still retains its status of contamination even after you did this Batzasan act. It's still considered a handle if it's still connected to the grain, and therefore it will have the status of the grain. And just like the grain is susceptible to contamination, so too the stalk that's holding the grain is considered a handle, and therefore will have the same status. So the Gemara says, "My Batzasan." What does it mean? You did this act of Batzasan. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar Batzasan Mamash. Rabbi Yochanan says you were Batzasan Mamash, and Rabbi Elazar Omer Hitter Agdan. Rabbi Elazar says you didn't actually crush it. You just untied the bundle. So the Gemara says, Bishlama Rabbi Eliezer the Amar Batzasan Hitter Ugdan. That you just untied the bundle. You didn't do anything actually in the stalk itself. You just untied it. So Hainu the Mitami Rabbi Yossi. That's why Rabbi Yossi says that it still retains the status of a handle, because just opening up the bundle is not considered a significant act to change its status from being a handle. However, El Rabbi Yochanan the Amar. Rabbi Yochanan says, Batzasan Mamash. Rabbi Yochanan that says you actually stepped on it. The animal crushed the stalk. So, my Matame Rabbi Yossi. So why does Rabbi Yossi say that it still has the status of a handle after it was crushed? So the Gemara says, that's what we just said. Since you're able to go ahead and move it with the pitchfork, now that since it's still connected to the grain is connected to the stalk, even though it got crushed, but the fact that it's still connected makes it easy for you to stick that fork into it, and therefore, good morning, Yehuda, and therefore it still retains the status of a handle. Okay, now comes the Gemara and says a nice, very amazing, very important thing for us to know every day in life. Everything's important, but very interesting regarding tefillah, regarding prayer. The power of a prayer of a tzaddik. You know, a lot of times people go to a tzaddik. You know, you go ask the tzaddik to pray, right? Please pray for me. Does anybody understand the power of that prayer of the tzaddik? So look what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Lama nimshala tfilatan shel tzaddikim ke'eter. The prayer of a tzaddik is like a pitchfork. It's the language that the Torah uses when Yitzchak prays to Hashem. Rivka was barren. She was not able to have children, and he was praying for her. She was praying. He was praying, and the Torah used the language of vayeter, the language of a pitchfork. What's the idea of a pitchfork? Why that language? Why not the usual language of a yispalel? He prayed. Why? What's this pitchfork? What's this language of a pitchfork? The word that describes a pitchfork is eter, ayin, taf, resh. And the Torah uses that same language when it refers to the prayer of Yitzchak for Rivka. So what's why that uses of language? So you know what it's telling you? The prayer of a tzaddik works like a pitchfork. A pitchfork takes the grain, it sticks the fork into the grain, it picks it up, and then it transports it, and then it lets go. He turns over the pitchfork for the grain to fall down. He turns over the grain through the use of a pitchfork. So too, that's what the tzaddik, the prayer of a righteous person, turns the midah of achzariot. The midah of achzariot means when a person is deserving for Hashem to be strong with the person, to be tough with the person, he turns it, the prayer of a tzaddik turns it from being strong, being tough with the person, to being rachamim, to being merciful. That's the power of a prayer of a tzaddik. And we're going to read it inside. Lo malach. Ma eter, just like this eter is mahapeh. Turns the esasua shebegoren. He turns over the grain. Mimakom lamakom. He turns it from one place to another place. Av tfilatan shel tzaddikim. So too the prayer of tzaddikim mapechet. It has a power as if it turns mapechet daito shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu midat achzariot lemidat rachmaniyot, from being tough with the person to being merciful. Now, obviously, the tough with the person was because the person was deserving of being tough with, and yet this is the power of the tefillah, of
What
tefillah.
page is that, Rabbi?
This is page 14A2, 14A3. Now it's ready, 14A3. Right before the Mishnah. So that's what we have to realize. An ordinary person is it's not an ordinary person's judgment. We're saying that if there's let's say a gezerah, a decree against somebody, something a tough, that's what it means. And therefore he was deserving for Hashem to treat him with toughness. But it turns the prayer of a tzaddik turns that midah to a midah of mercy. That's the power of. And the way one of the commentaries says over here, is the idea of the eter, the pitchfork. It turns the food in order. It turns the grain to separate the food from the waste product. That's why when he picks up the dough, turns the grain. What he's doing is that he's separating the food should separate from the waste product, And in a certain sense, the food is, the Maharsha says, the food is the Midah Tovah. The food represents, the food part is the good part. The waste product of the item is the bad part of the item. It's the waste. It's the shell. It's the you eat a hard-boiled egg. You have the shell and you have the food. You have the food. The shell is the waste product, right? So the shell of the grain is comparable to the bad midah, to the thing that's bad, so to speak. And that's what happens. It's the separation. It turns from the separates the bad, separates the good from the bad midah. That's what the Maharsha says. Okay. At the end of the day, when you pick up with a pitchfork, what's happened? The conclusion of the Gemara is that the pitchfork is used to go ahead and it helps separate. It helps transport the grain. And when you use a pitchfork, when the grain is still in the stalk, and when you use the pitchfork, you separate the good part from. You turn over the grain with the pitchfork, and you separate the good part of the grain from the shell. That's what the pitchfork is. That's what people do with pitchforks. We have to go visit the farms a little bit, see what goes on in the granaries. But that in the Gemara, it's interesting that the Gemara, once the Gemara was talking about this concept of using a pitchfork, the Gemara thought I want to tell you something interesting about a pitchfork. That the prey of a tzaddik as compared to what pitchfork accomplishes. Okay, good morning, Mr. Batesh. And good morning to everybody. Now we're starting the new Mishnah on Yud Dalet Amud Aleph, 14a. By the way, there was a very complicated sugya that we just went through regarding the Tumah and the Tahara, the handles and so on. And we hope everybody has a handle on everything. Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed that pun. We got some laughs on the deal. Misachachin bin Esarim. The Mishnah states that the first opinion says you could use boards, plain boards of wood, since they come from the ground, they're not mekabel tumah, and you could use these boards as schach for your sukkah. And the Gemara is going to identify what is the size of these boards. Divi Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, that's his opinion, because a piece of wood is not susceptible to contamination unless you made the wood into a receptacle that you could hold something. You could be served as a container or something, but if it's flat, it's not considered a utensil. That's the general rule by wood, and therefore a piece of wood that's flat is not susceptible to contamination. Therefore, it emanated from the ground, it's separated from the ground, it's not susceptible to contamination. So the first opinion of the Mishnah says, Rabbi Yehuda says it's good. This board that's made out of wood, I could go ahead and cover my sukkah with wooden boards. That's the opinion of Yehuda. Comes Rameya. Rameya says, Rameya Oseh. Rameya says you cannot use boards to cover your sukkah. What's the problem? Why can't I cover my sukkah with boards? He's afraid. There's a rabbinic prohibition. What's the rabbinic prohibition? Because if you're going to go ahead and you're going to use boards as your schach, you're going to come to use your house as schach. You're going to think, what's the difference? I'm sitting on the boards in the sukkah. I sit on the boards in my house. That's what I use. That's what I use my ceiling. I have boards on my ceiling in the house. And therefore, to protect that a person should not come to think that I could use my house ceiling as my sukkah, therefore, we go ahead and we say you can't use boards. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Silverman. We are on 14a3, right? We just finished the Mishnah.
Got it.
So we're still in the middle of the Mishnah. Now, if you placed a board on top of your sukkah, which is 4 tfachim, which is 15 inches wide. So if you do such a board, so that the Mishnah says, what's the halacha in such a case? So the Mishnah says, the halacha is kashera. The sukkah is still kosher. It does not invalidate the sukkah. You have this 15-inch board. Ubelvad, meaning you have, besides this board, you have other kosher schach. This board, the Mishnah is going to say, is not kosher because it has such a size of 15 tefachim. It's a 15-inch board. It's not kosher. And the way Rashi explains, you put this board adjacent to the wall. You put this board adjacent to the wall, and it does not invalidate the sukkah, ubelvad, as long as shelo yishen tachtav. You cannot sleep or eat anything under this board, because this board is considered what, Yehuda? Not kosher schach. Okay? So if you have a board that's 15 inches, let's say by 15 inches, 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, it's not kosher schach. And as long as the rest of the sukkah you have a kosher area that's 7 tfachim by 7 tfachim with kosher schach on it, an area of, then that's fine. And Rashi fills in the blank. Rashi says, how does this work? We say the law that we said earlier called dofen akuma, that the wall turns. That means, remember we gave the example, if let's say this would be a wall of the sukkah, let's say if this would be the wall of the sukkah, right? And right on top of this wall, this is not kosher schach. So, but then right over here is kosher schach. As long as the not kosher schach does not go for 7 feet, as long as it's within Dalet Amot, we say that this wall and that schach, it's like moves to where the kosher schach is. And therefore, if the kosher schach is right over here, let's say, so therefore, let's say the kosher schach begins here, not kosher schach is between here and there, the wall moves to right here, and starting from here is my sukkah. Is that clear? That's the rule of dofen akuma, that the wall moves. The sukkah is still kosher.
Without this board, of the wall,
without this board, meaning to say, you need to have the minimum size of an area of a sukkah, that in order to be a kosher sukkah, has to be 7 tefachim by 7 tefachim. So as long as past this board, you have a proper area, you have a minimum of 7 tefachim by 7 tefachim, and you have kosher schach, so then that would be called the sukkah, and this part is not considered part of the sukkah, but this is considered the wall of the sukkah. This is not part of 7 by 7, because this is like, it's as if there's a wall that's here. The 7 by 7 is inside the walls. So you have the walls, then you have 7 by 7 inside. Okay, so the Gemara now is explaining what is the dispute between the rabbis over here regarding this boards. What's the case? Like Mr. Haber always likes to talk about, you need to know the focus here first to have anything after what the case is, the law, and the reason. And that's what's going to play a big role here. There's going to be a question in the Gemara between Rav and Shmuel, and what exactly is the case that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir are arguing in. We have a dispute in the Mishnah regarding these boards, but the rabbis in the Mishnah did not clarify what's the size of the boards that they're arguing about, right? The Mishnah talks in short, did not clarify. So the Gemara says, Amar Rav, machloket. The machloket is b'nisarim sheyesh behen arba'a. Boards that's a width of 4 tfachim. So you have a board that's 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim. You have a board that's that's, let's say, around 15 inches by 15 inches, the Rameya Isle Gzera Tikra. Rameya says we have to make a Gzera, where make a decree of your roof, of your ceiling, of your house. Because since these are similar to the boards that are used for your ceiling of your house, in general, they would use boards, the standard boards that they would use for a ceiling of a house were boards of 4 tvachim. How do you like that, Mr. Patesh? 4 tvachim. 4 tvachim by 4 tvachim. By 15 by 15. And that was the standard board that a person would use for his house. Now, a house is made for a house. It's not made for so when you make your ceiling for your house, you're not making it for a sukkah. It's not a kosher, your house boards, even if they technically fulfill the requirement of kosher schach, even if it would be kosher schach, but technically it's still not kosher for sukkah, because your house, your ceiling that was made for the purpose of a ceiling for a house is not a kosher sukkah. So Rameya holds that we need to say that 4 tfachim board is not kosher for schach, because what's the problem? Because we're afraid that you're gonna come to use the boards of your house. You're gonna say, if I could use that board, what's the difference if I'm sitting in a sukkah? You know, a person might just say, I gotta be under some sort of board. And look at the board of a sukkah, the top, the ceiling. If you make boards on the sukkah, and if you say it's good, they'll say, I have to, you know, on Sukkot, I could sit in my house as long as I'm sitting under the board, just like I sit on the board in the sukkah. So, and if the sukkah board, the sukkah roof, the cover of the sukkah is used with boards that resemble the boards of one's house, so a person will say that my house would also be kosher, as long as I'm sitting under the board part of the house. Maybe there's I can't eat outside the sukkah. So, but my house, my boards on my house would be sufficient, just like the boards of the sukkah. So Rameya says there's a problem of people making a mistake. Now, Rabbi Yehuda less like Zeratikra. Rabbi Yehuda is not concerned that a person will say that if you go ahead and you make a sukkah, you go outside your house and you put up a structure, and you put up these walls, and you put up these boards on top. He's not afraid that people are going to say, you know, if I could use these boards for my sukkah, I could use my house. He's not, people on this, maybe he untold, the people know there's a difference between the boards that you have on your sukkah and the boards that you have in your house. People are not going to make, let's say he's not concerned that people are going to make that mistake, that you're going to come to say, I could use my boards on my house. People most probably know, Sukkot, you can't use the boards of your your house. You have to use it. It has to be boards that are specifically designated for sukkah. At this point, the focus. But even if there's a little space that they could see the stars, we're not worried. I mean, let's say the space between the boards, that they could see the stars. So here, the question is, what's the? So that's the Gemara's question. But however, but if you have a board that's not 4 tvachim, l'divrei hakol kashera. Everybody holds, according to this first approach of Rav, if it's less than 4 tvachim, if you have a board that's less than 4 tvachim, that doesn't resemble the standard board of a house. The standard board of a house is for a ceiling is 4 tvachim. If it's less than 4 tvachim, there's no machloket. Everybody would agree that there's no problem. If you want to make for a sukkah, and you put these boards and they're less than 4 tvachim, since they came from the ground, they're not susceptible to contamination. They're flat wood boards. You could use it for schach. You make your sukkah, you could take the boards, but you have to just make sure to fulfill everybody's opinion. Don't fulfill a mayor's opinion. Don't have the boards 4 tvachim. Make sure they're less than 4 tvachim. As long as the board is less than 4 tvachim, it doesn't resemble the roof of your house. Because everybody knows that the standard boards of your house are 4 tvachim, are 15 inches boards. And so as long as you make a board for your sukkah that's less than 15 inches, everyone sees that's a sukkah. And no one's going to make a mistake and say, if I could use a 13-inch board for my sukkah, I could use a 15-inch board for my house. People see. A sukkah, you use a 13-inch board, and a house is a 15-inch board. That won't work. My house won't be good. I can't sit in my house for sukkah because that board of my house is too big, because it's larger than the size of the board of that for the sukkah. So that's the first opinion in the Gemara. So it will come out, Dr. Navid, based on this, is at which point would the board be invalid schach? And then it'll have ramifications for that specific spot. It could have ramifications regarding the whole sukkah, depending how much of that schach is there. So here we're saying, they're arguing, is the 4 tefach board disqualified for schach? Or a 4 tefach board is a 15-inch board kosher for schach? That's 2 opinions in the Mishnah according to this first approach. Rameya and Rabbi Yehuda. Rameya says 15-inch board, no good. Rabbi Yehuda says 15-inch board is good. That's the first understanding of the machloket. Come Shmuel is a different Amorah. Rav and Shmuel many times disagree with each other. He has a different understanding of the case of the Mishnah. What's the case of the Mishnah that they're arguing? So he says the following. Again, we are arguing. The question is a 15-inch board. No, and Rabbi Yehuda says yes. Look what the review says in the Mishnah. Right, therefore it's yes. If you don't describe to the decree of banning a board, that means you're saying that the board is fine.
Rabbi Meir is the lenient.
What's that? Meir is strict because he says it's not.
Sorry. Rabbi Meir is strict. Correct. He's most
correct. No, he's more strict. Yes. What do you say, Dr. Rabbi Meir said it could be people could make a mistake. Rabbi Meir is generally concerned from people making mistakes, these type of things. And Rabbi Meir said people will make a mistake if you go ahead and you allow the use of a 15-inch board for your sukkah as your schach. They're going to come to use they'll come to use your 15-inch board of your house, of your ceiling, and they'll sit in your house. They'll come to sit. The kid. That's the first approach is that Rabbi Yehuda holds, even if it's 4 tvachim. The first approach in the Gemara, you're at the second approach. The first approach, look at the. Yes, David.
What the dispute is whether or not 4 by 4 tvachim is allowed or not. Rabbi Yehuda say yes. Rabbi Meir say no. Under 4 tvachim, under the first dispute, everybody agrees it's fine. That's the first understanding.
That's the first understanding.
Now we're going to come to that. Yeah, so they're arguing 4 tvachim. Is that good or not?
So look, you look now. Look at the Hebrew side for a second. You got the Hebrew side. Amar Rav. We'll start again that Gemara. Amar Rav. Machloket ben Isarim b'sheyesh b'mabah. The dispute is board that have 4 tvachim. The Reb Meir itlei gezerah tikra. Reb Meir is concerned that you're going to come to use the roof of your house. Rabbi Yehuda letlei gezerah tikra. who is not concerned. Of a Nisar she ain't what if it doesn't have 4 tvachim? If it's less than 4 divrei hakol kashera, everyone holds it's kosher. Now comes Shmuel and he says differently. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, "B'she'ein behem arba machloket." Where is the argument when it doesn't have 4 tvachim? That Rav Meir is a famous Gemara that says Rav Meir chayish l'miuta. The Gemara in Gittin, other places, Rav Meir is concerned for the minority. There's a minority of homes that use boards that are less than 4 tvachim for ceiling. And because there's a minority of people that use boards, let's say 80%, 90% use 15-inch boards. But there are those that use 11-inch boards. There's a minority that use between 11 and 15-inch boards. So Rameya says if you're going to allow, Rameya holds that we're talking about even it's less than 15 inches. Good morning, Ariel. We're not going to allow a board less than 15 inches, let's say between 11 and 15, because why? Because if you allow such a size board, even though it's not the standard 15-inch board, but since there are homes that use boards that are 11 to 15 inches, if you allow that for schach, Rameya says, we're going to make a mistake and they're going to come to use the roof of the house. Rabbi Yehuda says you don't have to worry. Since most people, the standard board of a house is a 15-inch board, 15 by 15. Now, the fact that the fact there are a minority of people that use a less than 15-inch board, but since you're using specifically less than 15-inch board for your sukkah, and the standard board of a house ceiling is 15-inch board, there's no problem. No concern. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says as long as you're using less than a 15-inch board, you're good. But if it's a 15-inch board, Rabbi Yehuda would be concerned. Rabbi Yehuda would be concerned that people would say that if you could use a 15-inch board for your sukkah, they'll come to use the standard house board and they'll go under their house and they'll think they could fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah by sitting under the roof of the house. They'll think that the mitzvah of sukkah is you got to be under a certain type of roof. They don't know that it has to be made. You have to leave the house specifically made for a sukkah. And they'll say if you could use a 15-inch board for schach, they'll come to think I could use it. As long as I'm under my board in my house, I'm good. I got the wall, I got the boards. It looks like, what's the difference between what the sukkah outside looks, what my house looks? Similar measurement. I got the walls, I got the boards. So therefore, to make sure people will make that mistake, everybody would hold that a 15-inch board would be a problem. Because that's the standard size board that people make their houses with. So that's what Shmuel Amar. Shmuel says, "B'she'ein behem arba machloket." The only time there's a dispute in the Mishnah is when it's less than 15 inches. There, Rabbi Yehuda will say it's kosher to use such a board. However, of she'ish ben arba, that has 4 tvachim, if it's 15 inches or more, which is already the standardized size for the strip, then the divrei hakol psula. Everybody would hold that it is invalid. So the Gemara asks the question: if it's less than 15, Rameya still says it's a problem. Why should it be a problem? I mean, en behem arba afilu hocha mishlosha. What about Rameya says it's a problem if it's not 15 inches, not 4 tvachim? Does he also hold even if it's less than 3 tvachim? It also would be a problem. It's like reeds. What do we do for schach? We use reeds for schach. It's less than 3 tvachim. So why would Rameya say it's a problem? They're just reeds. We'll see tomorrow more about this question of the Gemara. We'll get back. Have a great day, everybody. Want to have a great davening, everybody? To remember the prayer of a tzaddik has such power. And people should go to tzaddikim and people ask the tzaddik to pray for them if they realize that's a great split for the person. Have a
Rabbi,
great day.
where's your pitchfork?
I know. Very good. Very good. Have a great day, everybody.
H, have a great day.
You too. Love you, Mike.
Great day. You too.
Brother. Bye, Eddie.
Bye-bye.